Rhetorical skills. What we're talking about here is the knowledge of language, which means we've got to take a look at the words, not just the grammatical rules, but how they actually come together to form sentences. First things first, we want to be concise. We've all recognized that people like to just throw more and more words out to make sentences seem more and more complicated by jamming as many things as possible into a single sentence. That, however, is not really great writing. Let's take a look at this sentence. Picking the right equipment is an essential and important step before you climb a mountain. When I see essential and important, what I should be recognizing right here is that these two words mean the same thing. So we don't actually need both of them in the sentence to convey that meaning. We can get away with just one, essential or important, but not both. So being redundant means using the same word twice or repeating the same concept. We want to try and shorten the sentence where possible. Sometimes you can even omit the underlined portion. Let's take a look at this sentence. Greek geometry was more advanced than earlier forms of mathematics that came before it. If you read that sentence quickly, you may not catch the fact that the idea has been repeated in the second part of the sentence that was actually already said in the first part. That came before it, that's the same thing as saying earlier. So we can actually cut the entire end of that sentence and be left with a cleaner sentence. Greek geometry was more advanced than earlier forms of mathematics. Now, when we're talking about being redundant, if we want to see an example that actually might show up on the test, here's one to take a look at. The first crafts sent into space were unmanned rockets without any people in them. Hopefully, you recognize that we've got some repetition here. But even if you don't, take a look at the answer choices. What we want to do here is look for the shortest answer choice that still fulfills the same meaning as the sentence. Rockets that did not carry any astronauts, rockets lacking human passengers of any kind, or just rockets. Look back earlier in the sentence. What do we see? We see the fact that they're unmanned. We don't need to repeat the idea that there are no people in them. We've already got unmanned earlier in the sentence. So we can go with D and just say rockets and preserve the entire meaning of the sentence. Wordiness. How is wordiness different than redundancy? Well, redundancy is about repeating the same idea. Wordiness is about just having some extra words thrown in there. When I was in high school, I used to try and make my sentences as long as possible to prove that I was very sophisticated. What I found out from my English teacher is that I was not so sophisticated. Using extra words unnecessarily just clutters the sentence. Stephen helped in the establishment of the organization. Well, doesn't that sound sophisticated? Is it necessary? Probably not. We can actually get away with saying the same thing in fewer words. Stephen helped establish the organization. We took 4 words, we shrunk it to 1, we kept the sentence saying the same thing. So when we say wordiness, we mean cut out the extra stuff. In fact, I refer to this as avoiding BS. What does BS stand for? We all know. Big sentences, obviously. So, here's another example. The bake sale was organized by Steve, the person who, at the time of the event, was leading the club. That's ridiculous. Same sentence, fewer words. The bake sale was organized by Steve, the leader of the club. So when we can, trim the words down to use fewer words to say the same thing. Now, we've been talking about cutting words out, and now I'm going to pivot for a second and tell you that sometimes we have to add words in. Some of you are probably thinking, well, that's ridiculous. You just told me to cut things out, now you want to add things in. How do I know when to do what? Well, let's take a look at this example, walk through it, and see when it pays to actually be specific and add words in. My cat left something on my doorstep. Well, that's exciting. Maybe you got a present from your cat. Your cat wanted to bring you something really, really nice. Well, something is kind of vague. So what happens if we add a little bit more in? My cat left something awful on my doorstep. Well, now that present doesn't sound very good, but I still don't know what it is. Let's go one step further. My cat left an object, something so disgusting it made me sick, on my doorstep. Okay, things are definitely getting worse, but I still have no clue what's really sitting on my doorstep. Take a look at this final sentence. My cat left a large, sticky hairball on my doorstep. Well, that's rather unfortunate, but at least I now know what that something was. When we're taking a look at a sentence and the word that's there is vague, if we can add some detail to make it clearer, that's actually going to be a plus. And when we see this actually replicated in a question, the question itself is often a fantastic guide to say, let's be specific. Look at this example. When a tornado hit my town, it significantly damaged everything on my street. If I read that sentence for just pure grammar, there's nothing wrong. But if I look at the question which says which choice provides the most specific and detailed information, now I know I'm not just looking for the grammar, I'm looking for what words actually convey something specific and detailed. If I take a look at these answer choices, only one of them gives me any detail. H, knocked down many trees and houses. The others all fit grammatically, but none of them actually convey any kind of detail to what was actually destroyed by the tornado. Finally, after we've talked about cutting things out and adding things back in, sometimes it's about being just more precise. This is choosing the right word. The candidate gave a forceful speech thanking his supporters for helping him win the election. There's nothing really on its surface that's terribly wrong with that, but it's a little bit weird. Would we be saying, "Thank you so much for helping me"? That's probably not the way that we want to convey this same meaning. What we're looking for is something that's got an emotional attachment. When we take a look at harsh, passionate, and violent, harsh and violent are definitely going more towards the negative, whereas passionate conveys some kind of emotional connection where that thankfulness can be conveyed with the right word. Forceful, harsh, passionate, violent, we had 4 choices, but only passionate gives us the right match. So choosing the right word is a little bit different than adding stuff in or cutting stuff out. It's about refining. When we're talking about tone, this is about achieving the right level of positive or negative or emotional or neutrality. Depending on the type of sentence that's actually printed here, we might have words that mean the same thing, but only one is going to be appropriate for this particular sentence. This chimpanzee has been observed engaging in behavior that is atypical for its species. This sentence is kind of on the academic side, so atypical is an appropriately formal word to drop in here. Messed up, way out there, and totally freaky all do mean something different, but they're pretty informal. In our sentence, we're talking about something scientific. Atypical is going to be a better fit. Now, just because we have something here that fits for formality doesn't mean we should always be formal. For instance, if I were to use this sentence, I was at the mall when all of a sudden my girlfriend terminated our romantic affiliation. That sounds ridiculous. That's way too formal. We would be looking for something that's more like, and she broke up with me. So when we're talking about tone, we might have words that mean the same thing. We have to look at the totality of the sentence to make sure the context is right to choose the right word.